I was about to compare times. Apparently that wasn't flying.
All right, well, we've got 6 o'clock, and we're going to call the City of Brainerd's Planning Commission meeting Wednesday, January 18th to order. With that, Director Camvick, could you call the roll, please?
Yeager.
Yes.
Marone. Gorham.
Yes.
Woodward.
Here.
Duval.
Yes.
Stangline.
Here.
All right, thank you. At this point, let's rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We will now proceed to item 4 on the agenda, oath of office. Director Kramvik, you've got that?
I'll do the city flag. Do the city flag.
Okay, so Don will have you raise your right hand and repeat after me.
All right.
So I state your name.
Don Gorham.
Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
Do solemnly swear I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of
the
Minnesota,
Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the Office of Planning Commission
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of the Planning Commission
of the City of Brainerd, Minnesota,
of the City of Brainerd, Minnesota,
to the best of my judgment and ability, so help me God.
to the best of my abilities.
Congratulations.
All right. Perfect.
Welcome back, Don. Nice to have you.
Thanks.
So we're at item 5 now. We're election of officers. We have chair and vice chair offices to fill. And so looking for nominations for those offices.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I'd like to nominate
acting chair.
Mr. Acting Chair.
Still chair, I think.
You're still the chair for about 30 more seconds. Enjoy it. I'd like to nominate Kevin Yeager as our chair for the upcoming year.
Righty, are there any other nominations for officers for the chair? I'd also like to nominate Ms. Woodward, Commissioner Woodward, as chair. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, we can go to a vote by hand, if you would. All those in favor of...
Can I interject for a
you
second?
may interject.
So considering things that I have going on in my life and health issues that have come up, I'm tempted to respectfully decline the nomination if I could. I'm not sure that I can handle the additional. I don't think I can do it the way that I can't,
Okay.
the way that it needs to be done and the attention it needs to be given.
Okay. All right, so you decline your nomination. That leaves us with Commissioner Yeager. So all those in favor, it's pretty much a white ticket. Say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. All right, I'm giving up my chair.
I got appointed like you got appointed. Yeah. I'll just stay here, is that okay?
Yeah, here, give him that thing.
The old gavel was better. The new gavel's
I
okay.
100% agree.
Old gavel was way.
All right, so we still have to elect a vice chair. So at this time, I will open it up for nominations for vice chair.
Ms. Woodward, would you accept the nomination for continuation as vice chair?
I believe I could do that again.
All right, we have a nomination for Ms. Woodward. Is there any other nominations? Second time, any other nominations? And last time, any other nominations? Hearing none, we're going to vote. All those in favor of Ms. Woodward serving as vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. There we go. We got our officers.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I'm sure we will do our best to serve you guys the best we can. All right, item number 6, this will be the approval of, or amendment to anything that we see on the agendas.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion to approve by,
Second, Gorm.
motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. There we go. We got an agenda. First thing on our agenda is the approval of the minutes. At 7:1. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved, Duval.
I got a motion to approve by Duval and a second by
Gorm.
Gorham. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We got some minutes. All right, item number 8, this is old business. This is the lighting work group results for revisions to zoning code section 515.4.8, outdoor lighting. Mr. Kramvik, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the Planning Commission directed staff to attend the Park Board meeting, BPU Commission meeting to discuss creating a city-wide policy regarding color temperature standards in lighting. The work group was tasked with helping the city of Brainerd form an overall lighting policy regarding lighting color temperature standards. Lighting within the city consists of street lighting / traffic lighting, lighting within our city parks, and private property lighting. So the work group overall did form a consensus that the city should adopt policies and ordinances for 3,000 Kelvin lighting. There were certainly some other discussions within this work group of things that could be done to help limit light pollution as well. So with street lighting / public lighting policy, so as part of the street reconstruction projects upcoming in Brainerd, the city of Brainerd will implement the new lighting policy once it is adopted by city council. So once the street projects happen, the new poles and fixtures would be implemented into those projects. The preliminary policy includes fixtures with a color temperature of 3,000 kelvins. Council has been supportive of implementation of these standards. Initial cost estimates indicated that there would be no increase from going from 4,000 down to 3,000 kelvins. I know that was kind of an original concern, if there would be any cost of going from the different lighting temperature standards. But we are finding that there was no increase, at least in the residential standards. Staff has also researched the price to add photo cells with dimmable motion sensing nighttime lighting to the fixtures as well. So similar to the property adjacent to City Hall here, which would be Mid-Minnesota, where the lights dim at night to 50%, and in the event that somebody needs to use the property, would go back on to full strength there. So when they were looking at cost for that, it would be potentially an extra $125. So we are looking into cost for that as well, because that could impact how the ordinance is formed and if we require businesses and properties to do that. So that's the overall street lighting policy. So that kind of dictates the right-of-way lighting, commercial and residential areas. So changes to the zoning code. So in addition to kind of that consensus 3,000 Kelvin temperature standards, there was a discussion and a consensus to mandate dimmable lighting for non-residential uses. Still the park board, because they would be part of this zoning code and would be affected by the zoning code, would still need to review potential code language at their next meeting for implementing that dimmable lighting and any other standards in our zoning code to the parks as well. Another significant amount of discussion of this work group centered around color temperature standards in new residential lighting. So right now the city of Brainerd does not issue electrical permits when a house wants to change a fixture out, maybe their front porch or something like that. There's not really an electrical permit for that. However, the building department does review all new homes and can require applicants to submit a lighting plan that would potentially meet the new standards of 3,000 Kelvin within the lighting ordinance. So it was determined at the work group that the standard should apply to all residential properties as well as commercial properties. So beyond those other aspects there of potential dimmable lighting, also looking at residential properties, discussion also involved creating a mechanism as part of the new ordinance to require properties to correct lighting fixtures that are displaying non-intended correlated color temperatures. So I know Commissioner Duval did bring a picture to that work group. That picture was a picture of Super One, which there's an issue with the LED lighting there where it almost turns purple now. So it was a kind of is there a way in the zoning code to make them change that fixture if the LEDs are malfunctioning? So within that, kind of the last page of this Staff did provide recommendations for potential code language amendments. There's a couple options that I did look at, either implementing both of these ordinances into a lighting restrictions and trespass section. We'd have to rename that section. Right now it's just light trespass. It could be moved to lighting restrictions and trespass. The other option would be to put it in our performance standards for commercial and residential, but then you're kind of duplicating as well. Staff's recommendation was to add it to section D of our lighting ordinance. First one is color temperature of lamps. All new lighting must have a correlated color temperature of 3,000 kelvins or lower. And all fixtures displaying a non-residential correlated color temperature is considered in violation of this ordinance. So I was talking about the mechanism to enforce change on there. The group did discuss recreational lighting in our parks would be exempted from this. So ball fields, hockey rinks of such, those typically would need a 5,700 Kelvin temperature limit to mimic daylight in order to play the various sports there. And really the park board could decide on that, but really is taking recommendations from the lighting companies on that. So, potentially not needing to actually set the limit on that. And then number 2 would be dimmable lighting. All new non-residential lighting must dim by at least 50% or turn off at 10 p.m. or 1 hour after close of business, whichever is later. We were looking at the Planning Commission at, example language from Greenfield, Minnesota. This is very similar wording to what they had in their ordinance for dimmable lighting. From a staff recommendation, I'd put in there as 10 p.m. They had 11 p.m. in theirs. I thought 10 p.m. was more of a time when it could potentially be dimmed. And still there's, if the business is open later, there is still that caveat there that it could be potentially later as well. So with that, I can certainly answer any other questions that the Planning Commission has.
Thank you, Mr. Kramvik. So at this time, I'll open it up to anybody who has any questions for Mr. Kramvik.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, please.
last night, did maybe Ms. Englund as well, last night, did City Council take action on the color standards for the street lighting policy?
Yes.
There was an action there, right?
Yep, and the 80/20.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
So this part of it now, the city policy now is going forward now, the 3,000 Kelvin.
That is correct.
Thank you. No further, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any further questions?
I have one question.
Yes, please, Tom.
Has the city looked towards, this group looked towards state standards that are out there? Specifically, I'm referring to the Green Steps program that I think we're part of that, which, encourages cities to take on more environmental standards. In other words, what I'm trying to say is are we looking towards other standards, statewide standards, national standards?
So we are part of Green Steps. It's not something that staff has worked on as much in the last 3 years. We are getting back involved with it. Something that our new assistant planner has been working on. There are other policies that mandate LED lighting. Obviously, LED lighting is far more efficient than certain other types. The work group did discuss this. Do we want to mandate LED lighting? It was determined that because there could be potential new technology out there or new lighting that comes, in the future, that we may not want to mandate a specific type of lighting and bulb.
So Green Steps is alive, and we are looking towards.
We are going to be working on that again.
That's kind of what I was hoping for. Thank
Yep.
you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? I just have a real quick question. Can you just kind of walk us through the steps of what you're hoping for us to do tonight, where this document is going to make its way to next? Park Board still needs to look at this, is that correct? Then it needs to work its way back to the council, is that right, Mr. Kramvik?
Yes, that's correct. So Park Board agenda will be going out at the end of the week. So if Planning Commission does see any changes that need to be made here, I think that would be the time to do it. Obviously, this isn't a first reading or anything like that. But if Planning Commission sees to tweak anything in here, make recommendations, I could add that to what we'd be presenting to the Park Board as well. So if Planning Commission's good with it, Park Board's good with it, we'd be potentially moving it as a maybe a first or an ordinance in a public hearing at Planning Commission. I would think if Park Board has significant changes, that we may have to come back to Planning Commission one more time.
Thank you. So at this point, basically what staff is looking for is just to have us give this a first look on the additions to the section 8.d, and we've added number 1 and 2. We already had 3 and 4 in there. And just see if we have any thoughts. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys for any questions, comments. And if not, then we'll be looking for a motion.
I'll just say, Mr. Chair, I'll just say, I think it looks good. I think this is a progressive ordinance. I like it. I will make a motion that we go ahead with the recommendations as stated.
All right, thank you. We have a
Second.
motion and a second.
Yep.
Do we have any further discussion?
Just, you know, as we're going forward on this, staff has the note here about adding the PSP district into that section, so we'd want to bundle that as one motion, right? I mean, when we're coming back, not tonight, but I mean, for the final package, all of the changes we want to 15 or 515-48D.
Run it through the park board, bring it back with everything all encompassed in one document, is what we're looking for,
And
right?
we'll pick up the housekeeping thing with the PSP at that time.
Yep, that's correct.
Perfect.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries, very good. I'm excited about this. This is something not a lot of cities are doing, so I'm happy that we're a part of it. This is
Where
pretty
we
cool.
need to be.
Yeah, very cool. All right, that will wrap up item 8A. We will move on to new business. This is item 9. This is 9A, the Planning Commission and Community Development Yearly Itinerary. Please, Mr. Crampick.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I prepared this document for Planning Commission to review potential upcoming items that we could work at on the Planning Commission level, as well as kind of informing the Planning Commission of other tasks that the Community Development Department will be working on, so we can kind of look at workload of the Planning Commission as well as what we're doing in the Community Development Department. So with that, I did list number 1, outdoor lighting, as this is not fully done yet. We still have some review on this, some other commission meetings, as well as bringing back an ordinance and public hearing to Planning Commission. So this is obviously the number 1 thing to do, but we are kind of on the back end of this ordinance revision. Number 2, if you remember from our workshop that we held, I believe it was in October, we had 3 items and we were going to get through as many as we potentially could. One of them was Ordinance 1541 that was just passed with the demolition of residential dwelling units. The other one was a lighting ordinance, and the other one was manufactured home overlay district. So staff has done some preparation for this topic, so it is somewhat ready to go. This is a topic that was not really reviewed by Planning Commission or staff. It was slightly amended by Swanson Hascamp to clean a few things up within that ordinance, but something certainly that we still do need to look at. Number 3 is off-street parking. So this is another one that we really didn't review at all, knowing that this is kind of a bigger thing that we're going to have to look at it from a community perspective. In our previous zoning code as well as our new one, we've exempted a lot of our areas. So our commercial corridor district, our Main Street, our town center district, our general commercial district, those are all exempted from parking. It's really residential that we still do have parking standards for. And a reason for that is, you know, and one of the reasons we didn't look at this is from a staff perspective. We really didn't know what's working and what's not working. So with that, I did this past summer have our community development intern take a look at some of our parking standards of what's out there and how these properties are being used. For instance, Cub Food. We looked at what our new ordinance says, you know, you potentially be required based on the square footage and type of use of that property, how many parking spaces are actually on that property, and then, you know, really kind of on a daily basis, how much is that property used. So I think that's going to be really beneficial, you know, moving forward. And when we do want to look at this topic on how we can maybe scale back some of the requirements. Maybe some properties do need more. I know things that have come up in the past is, maybe there's a parking minimum, but also a parking maximum, so you don't create lots that really aren't being used with that extra pavement, and you're setting aside stuff for development. I know it was brought up kind of originally that, maybe this would be something that the Parking Commission would handle and make a recommendation to Planning Commission, but Planning Commission, since it's part of the zoning code, can figure out if that's something that they would like to have the Parking Commission work on and defer to them. So that's kind of number 3, and I think an important topic. If we do have the Parking Commission look at it, right now the Parking Commission is not an active commission, so we would have to start it up again. So that would take a little bit of time. Number 4 is the subdivision ordinance. So this is really looking, this would be a larger project because the subdivision ordinance is quite large. It would be looking at making sure that it's consistent with our comprehensive plan that we just adopted, as well as it's consistent with the zoning code that we just adopted. I know, specifically the administrative subdivisions is pretty unclear in our code compared to some other codes that I've witnessed and looked at. So I know that's one major one that I'd want to take a look at within there as well. And then I did want to add one to here that just kind of, I've been working with Brainerd Public Utilities and the city of Baxter on a solar project. So it just got passed last night at the Baxter City Council for, approval of a solar array behind the wastewater management facility in Baxter. It's gonna be a 7 to 8 acre site worth of solar panels, right behind that wastewater treatment facility. But within this process, Baxter did not have any language for solar arrays within their code. And currently, the city of Brainerd really does not have anything in our code related to solar arrays. I do know that AEP, which partners with BPU, would like to potentially look at other sites within Brainerd for solar projects. So, the question is, do we want to be kind of reactive to it if they do find a site and potentially add code language to it, or do we want to be kind of preemptive to look at how we want that to lay out? So that's potential another consideration. Number 5 was Commission Member Marone's requests. He did email kind of a document here. I'm going to read this into public record, stating kind of his wishes on some of the other items to look at. So I'll be reading the document that was provided by Commissioner Marone. So it states, colleagues, since I will not be at the meeting, and since my remarks on the agenda for discussion in setting a work plan for the year, I want to take a moment to elaborate. So this is Commissioner Members Marone's request, lot sizes and setbacks, which is A, B is landscaping, and C is fences. On A, I would like to discuss how these provisions conflict with existing plating and how they are related to our comprehensive plan's housing and neighborhood development goals. On B, I would like to discuss how our landscaping provisions conflict with the comprehensive plan by adopting a suburban screening approach instead of an approach to landscaping that emphasizes urban design. And on C, we have provided the staff with guidance that makes administrating the ordinance problematic, and in my estimation, we need to either change our ordinance or clarify our guidance. Commissioner Yeager expressed his frustration to me for bringing these items up now instead of when the Planning Commission was discussing them during our ordinance review process. I respect that frustration, but I am also frustrated that I worked along with many others on the comprehensive plan, and in my opinion, the 2 items, lot sizes and landscaping, do not reflect the goals and intent of the plan. I am also frustrated that there seems to be a significant misunderstanding among commission members and staff about what a city is trying to accomplish by requiring signed agreements with adjacent property owners on fence construction, and we need to provide clarification. I respect the work of others on this commission that have spent on the code. I am not asking to review the entire code, but I'm requesting that we review these areas of concern where I believe the final product is out of alignment with the comprehensive plan and or creating confusion for staff and residents. Please do not respond, as I'm only providing my thoughts for your consideration, as I won't be at the meeting to discuss. These thoughts are obviously public information. I appreciate them being part of the record. So with that, I do have a couple of considerations from staff, from those items, and certainly if Mr. Marone is available for the next meeting or meeting after that, would certainly like some clarification on that and potential expansion of some of those. So I'll just kind of briefly talk about these, kind of regarding lot sizes. I won't go over every district, but specifically TN1 district. So our new zoning code is pretty unique, setting lot size maximums. Our old zoning code for R1, for instance, we did not have lot size maximums. Our new ones took a look at predominantly what are our lots made up of. So for instance, our lot and block combinations are most typical 50-foot by 150, which have a lot size maximum of 7,500. So now our lot size maximum in the TN1 district is 7,500 square foot for a lot. There are certainly now lots out there that became non-conforming in size because they're larger. We did, based on density, go to a lower lot size minimum in some of these districts. For instance, in the TN1 district, we have lowered the standards now. So we do have a few lots, I would say specifically in North Brainerd, that are probably larger than 7,500 square feet. But this doesn't really really stop those lots from adding on or doing anything to their property. What this maximum does is stop adjacent property owners from buying the property next to them. Either it's a vacant lot or they potentially tear something down in order to build garages or accessory structures. It's really setting those aside for potential redevelopment of homes. So I think that was part of the thought of creating lot size maximums. Obviously pretty unique compared to other zoning codes, and has created a few nonconformities with some of the lots that are larger. And certainly could use some further explanation on that. One other thing with setbacks that was also pretty unique with this zoning code is we set setback maximums as well. So within the commercial corridor district, we were wanting those properties to fit with some of the other properties in there, where we push them up next to Washington Street rather than having these large parking lots and really make Washington Street expansive. So I think that was something that we looked at with that, as well as the town center district, kind of having, you can only bring your house so far back. And this was kind of evident in some of our residential zoning districts as well. We now have a lot in our TN1 zoning district, for instance. You can go from 20 to 30 feet. In the past, if you could have built all the way to 50 feet back, and it really wouldn't have conformed with any of our neighborhoods. So we did set lot size kind of maximums as well as setback maximums as well. So that's pretty unique compared to other codes. With landscape screening, we certainly do have some areas in there, and I think Planning Commission did discuss this quite a bit in a workshop setting. I'll kind of read those off. So some of the areas that we do require screening is when a 6-foot high fence or landscape screen providing 80% year-round opacity shall be required whenever a non-residential use abuts directly upon land zoned for residential purposes. So that would be instance, essentially the ice vending machine that we use. We required that fence screening along the residential property there to help mitigate light, and require something to be put there to help mitigate problems with commercial right next to residential. So that was an example of that one. Another one is where multiple family dwellings are designed so the rear open areas or patio areas front onto a public street or private street, an 80% opacity, 4-foot high landscape privacy screen shall be provided. This one was in really from the last code. To me, it could potentially be looked at or changed. Do you need a screen with a patio open to the street? Potentially not. Maybe if it's a large gathering space patio to help mitigate that, you could do that. Most of our multi-units are conditional uses, anyways with that, so there could be a mandate through the conditional use process as well. So I think that could certainly, potentially be looked at in the future, but that is one of our screens as well. Another area where it requires screening is when a parking lot is adjacent to or across the alley from a residentially zoned property. The required screen height shall be increased to 6 feet. The other screening requirements that I think were taken potentially out of the landscape part, but maybe were a part of it in the old code, is there is a screening requirement for outdoor storage. This was used for Shannon's Auto Body as one of our examples where a screen was required around the area where they were keeping the cars that were severely damaged and inoperable. So cars that were fixed could be out in the parking lots, but there was required screening around the cars awaiting repair. And really the other area where screening is required is for mechanical equipment. So those are the ones that are specifically listed for screening. I think there is, potentially maybe wrong terminology for some of it. We have a section E called screening. Could it be potentially titled landscape enhancement? It could. That's just talking about what landscape plans should look like around buildings. It should be areas that should be emphasized as the boundary or perimeter around sites adjoining other properties, the immediate perimeter of the structure, so this would be foundation plantings. One thing that we do require in our code now is plants along the foundation of commercial properties, which we really had no requirement before at all. So it's just building, and they could have lawn or anything next to it. So while I don't think this is, it's under screening, we're not really looking to hide the building. We're just looking to, I think, to soften the building in those areas. But I think, potentially wrong terminology of screening. And then really parking lots is our other one. So we call this screening as well. So our parking lot ordinance is 1 shrub shall be planted for every 5 lineal feet of parking lot perimeter that is adjacent to a public street. 2 perennials can be substituted for 1 shrub. So with that, the plants can be 2 to 4 feet in height and designed in a way to screen the parking lot from street view. So in staff's opinion, you're not really screening cars. It's not a full screen. You still see cars in this instant. A couple of examples are Taco John's in town, Starbucks, where you're planting 2 feet spirea, you're planting Carl Forrester grass, which really screens for about 2 feet and then gets a little bit more opacity as it goes up. What it does is really soften and enhance the views of the parking lot, but it doesn't, it's not a full screen from headlights or anything like that. So certainly some different terminology there. Kind of the last one with that is fencing. So in regards to the required signed agreements with adjacent property owners on fence construction, staff has changed the administration of fence permits since the fence issue this past summer. Property owners are required to locate the property pins / property line and state that the construction of the fence will be completely off the property line or obtain signatures from all neighbors. I was a little concerned about this at first with the number of rentals that we had. Are people going to be able to get these signatures in all these instances? But as the summer went on, the process did take a little bit longer to complete, but all permits were eventually approved. And really there was no issues between neighbors after changing to this process. Staff really believes that this has been and will be a very beneficial process going forward in the city of Brainerd. So with that, those are those items for Planning Commission. And I did list a few other tasks on there that I'm sure you reviewed that the Community Development Department will be working on. Probably the biggest one would be potential codification of the city code. That's really looking at all of our codes to make sure they align with everything. We still do have to get final approval from City Council on this. We'll be sending RFPs for this, so it's not a for sure thing. But if it does get approved, this would be a large undertaking of the Community Development Department. So with that, I'll open it up for any other questions.
All right, thank you. Can you just go through that one more time? I just want to make sure I got it. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it was a lot of stuff.
This is a fairly robust list. So first thing is, anybody have any questions for James right off the bat here? Oh boy, we got arms going up left and right. I saw Don first.
All right. It's good to be next to the chair. I have to talk about item 5, Mr. Commissioner Marone's request. I'm trying to understand, is this something that an individual commissioner can say, let's reopen these parts of the process? Process to me that was very thorough and very well thought out, that the city put in quite a bit of money and quite a bit of time into. does one commissioner have the position of opening it up, so we really need to go back through this? Or is this something that the rest of the commission gets to opine, gets to weigh in on?
I do believe the rest of the commission would weigh in on this.
Thank you.
Mr. Duval?
Mr. Chair, question for James on the solar arrays. Would these be commercial, or are you talking about residential as well, things attached to the roof of your house?
So residential, we already have, allowance for that. It's really for a large solar array, solar farm project where you're talking acres. That's where we really don't have language right now.
And would the same be true for windmills as well? We've got interim use permit options for windmills.
I'd have to look further into that. We do have wind turbine systems. I'd have to look to see if we have commercial or not. I know we do have for sure residential.
At least on the uses, it looks like just the R1, R2, and none of the commercial districts seem to have that as an allowed use. So, so we've got standards for the residential that we carried forward from the old zoning ordinance to the revised, the new one, our current one. So, all right, so we're talking to basically the commercial uses. So when we want to put a large acreage of solar panels out there for either community or commercial use.
That's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions for staff? Okay, so I just have a couple quick questions. Obviously, this is a very robust list to try to get through. James, would any of these be items that we would need to call in outside help for instance, Swanson Hand? And where I'm going with this is if there are items on here where we may have outside service, it seems like a workshop may be a better setting so we can get that service provider all in one place at one time. We get a lot more done with less trips back and forth. So that's my first question is that, and then also, you didn't create this list based upon some version of urgency. It's not ranked from this is most important to this is least important. Is that right?
Probably with the exception of the outdoor lighting. That's obviously something we want to finish first, but not really ranked on urgency.
Okay, and then outside services, would they be a participant in, or outside vendors would be?
So that's not planned really with any of our stuff. Okay. Obviously, if we do want to work on the subdivision ordinance, we're looking at, probably half a year to a year process. I don't think there's going to be, as much need in the subdivision ordinance like we did with the zoning code rewrite. I think it's going to be much simpler, but something that I think we do need to fully review.
Gotcha, understood. So at this point, I guess I'd kind of like to ask, everyone here of how we'd like to tackle these items. We have two basic versions of tackling these. We could throw these into our normally scheduled monthly meetings and take them however many or that we could at a time, or we could parse them in or put them into some version of a workshop or a combination of both. So I can see some of these I think we could get through with a high degree of rapidity. Others I think could take a while.
Yes.
So I'm just going to open it up to you guys just as you read through the list. What are you guys thinking for how to get through this?
Mr.
Yes, please,
Chair,
Mr. Duval.
I like the idea of potentially contracting out the subdivision ordinance so that we can continue to move other things along. The task may not be great, but with the B list out here of competing staff time, we could be moving that along with the competency of an outside consultant to fix the issues of consistency and cross-referencing, and then use our staff time to maybe help us through some of these other issues like the off-street parking. That was one that we were very purposeful in putting sort of on the post-it board to say, we're going to come back to that. Right now, let's fix these major, the things that we can get at and get ourselves a revised and condensed ordinance out there. But we want to come back to that one. We specifically outlined that one. We specifically outlined the manufactured home overlay and the lighting. And so I think we're picking at those. The subdivision one could take a lot of time of our time if we do it in workshop format. It would be brutal in meetings, as you're appropriately saying maybe we go here. So I would almost advocate, if we have the resources or can make the request to city council for some funding, to perhaps pull that one and move that off the plate so it moves parallel to other things. So, and I think Mr. Kramvik has a.
Yes, please, Mr. Kramvik.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that, if we do want to do that, we have kind of already set the city budget for the year. So maybe that would be something that we'd look at, maybe next year and putting that potentially into the city budget. We could look for, we could do a review of staff just to see if there's any glaring things that are really in conflict with it. And, maybe this gets moved from, planning commission looking at the entire subdivision ordinance, maybe to just looking at the administrative subdivisions. I do think that's the one, and it's not a long section of code that we could look at potentially revising.
Understood. Okay, so anybody else have any thoughts on our little to-do list here?
Super quick question for James. Do we see subdivisions are there any proposals that we should be knowing about on subdivisions? Is there anything brewing that would make that close to the top of the list?
Yeah, so we do see lot splits, lot combinations quite frequently. We've had to bring variances in for some of these subdivision stuff. So I think that is one area of our subdivision ordinance, our administrative subdivisions that I think need probably the most work and most clarity. I've heard that from outside engineering sources as well.
Thank you.
Anybody else? And just to be clear, did I hear you say that you felt like you could get through the admin, you potentially take a run at the admin side just as staff first, and then maybe not have the need for an outside help?
Taking a high level look at it, see if there's anything in major conflict, I would say, without having to go through, all the revisions and looking for, making sure everything's congruent with each other. Probably just taking a high level look at it to make sure if there's anything that immediately sticks out that's in conflict.
Okay, understood. So I guess the only other question I would have then for you, James, is, we've kind of said what we think. How would you like to tackle these? Obviously, you and your staff is a critical part of the preparation, the documentation, all of this side of things. Knowing that summer is busy as it is, what do you think?
Potentially planning commission picks the next item that we want to work on. Maybe it's a smaller one like solar array. Maybe it's just the one section of the subdivision ordinance. Maybe some manufactured home overlay district that we start looking at potentially, so staff can begin preparing for it after the outdoor lighting has kind of gone through planning commission. Then we'd potentially be able to move to that one, and some of that, and I can keep the planning commission informed. If we do go forward with the codification, that's something that community development will be heavily involved in. So things could be adjusted at that time, but potentially planning commission looks at their next topic item that they'd like to look at, so we can start doing maybe a little prep work.
All right, thank you, James. So a question for the commission is, are we missing anything? Is there anything that we feel like should be added to this list, deleted from this list? Because I think the next move here might be to ask staff to kind of come back to us with a rough schedule of how we might be able to peck this off over the next few meetings, next many meetings, or however many meetings it takes. I'm feeling like I would like to see staff kind of bring a list or a rough schedule looking at our meetings, what we might be able to do. But before we do that, is there anything missing or anything that shouldn't be on this list? Please, Don.
I would just say I think the first 4 items are good items to focus on. Leave it at that.
Understood.
I'm all in favor of working it into the meeting schedule, and if we run into an extensive debate on a topic, to table it for a workshop so that we don't run our meeting time over, but to try and work them into our regular schedule.
All right. Any other thoughts? Okay, so would it be fair to say that what you're hearing back from us is if maybe, James, you could come back to us with obviously rank these by pressing items, what the staff needs the most help with first, what are our most pressing items, and then come back to us with just these laid out over the summer or the next 7 or 8 meetings or 2 meetings or whatever we think it might be, and then we can kind of review that and keep that on our radar and just keep working forward with these. Is that fair?
That sounds good. And I guess the only other thing that I may need direction from is the off-street parking. Is that something that the planning commission would like to defer to the parking commission?
Anyone?
That, I
Yeah,
guess
please,
was-
Mr. Duval.
Yeah, that was my, my next question was, do we feel like that we could have that discussion and tune that, or would it be helpful to send that over to another body to grind through it, like we did with the lighting thing, just to send it over, let a group grind through it, they can kind of focus on it, come back with something then that gets close to an actionable item. And then the question is, how long would it take to boot up a new parking commission? So that's a timeline for the Gantt chart, if you would, of where does that now put that topic? If it puts it in October, do we see more urgency to parking issues that we want to have something in place sooner than that? So those are the issues as I see it on that particular topic.
Yeah, agreed. And I do know that there has been some turnover in the parking commission as well. I know at least 2 of the people that are currently on there are kind of either not in the area anymore or no longer on there. So it would take a little bit of electricity to get that group going again. But so I'm feeling like, the right thing might be for us to take a run at it first, or at least initially. Is that what I'm hearing?
And we have former representatives of the parking commission on this body,
That's correct, yes.
So between yourself.
That's correct.
Mr. Maroon, is that Mr.
That's
Maroon?
correct, yep.
So and Don, were you on that as well?
Oh, not on that one.
Yeah, so we've got some folks that can pick this up and help guide us a little bit and present ideas for reflection, so.
Very good, very good. Okay, do you need a formal action on this, James?
I do not.
Okay, very good. All right, so we are going to move on here, get this in front of me. I will end item 9A. So our next item here is our public forum. We are going to open the public forum at 6:46. Does we have anyone online? Anyone who wants to speak? Is there anyone in the house here that's hiding behind any furniture? Seeing none, anyone at all? I'm going to close the public forum at 6:46 also. And we'll move on to a Community Development Director's report, please, James.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I did already speak about the solar array project behind BPU's wastewater treatment facility. So that was approved last night at the Baxter City Council meeting. Also, at the Brainerd City Council meeting, we talked about animals within properties. So we are going to be working within the Community Development Community Development Department to review our animal ordinance. We were directed by City Council that properties potentially could be allowed to have 4 animals, a combination of dogs and cats, and then potentially 4 chickens or 4 ducks. So staff was approached last year about potentially allowing ducks on properties. We did research very similar to raising chickens and for egg laying purposes. So we are going to be working on that, and we do have a new assistant planner in our department, Dylan Edwards. So he's kind of taking the lead on doing the research on some of that stuff. So, so he's been working on that, and it's been great to have him on board here for a couple weeks now. And then the other thing at council last night was Ordinance 1541, which Planning Commission thoroughly reviewed and recommended for approval for the City Council. City Council did vote to go with Planning Commission's recommended verbiage on that, adding line A3 back into it. So this ordinance will go into effect on January 29th. And also as a provision of Ordinance 1541, once it goes into effect, it will repeal the extended 3-month moratorium. So with that, that is everything that the director has.
Very good. Thanks, James.
Is there
Yeah,
Mr.
please.
Chair, is there a public hearing for that item, 1541?
So the second reading and public hearing's already been done.
Has been done. That
Yep,
was
that's been
last
done
night.
and passed.
Got it. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you. Commissioner, questions and comments? Don't all jump at once. Oh, yeah, please.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
First of all, it's good to be back. I swore I wasn't going to do a third term, but You know, I sincerely believe that community service is not an option. I think it's a requirement of a good life, and it's a requirement of being part of a town. It simply is. And then I'm going to do a little nitpicking. I've nitpicked on this subject before, but on the city website we list the terms, and we never get it right. It's still not right at all, because Gorham 25. That's when my term will be done. The vacant a seat. That'll be 25. Then we have Yeager and Marone at 24th. That makes sense. Then we have Duvall and Woodward at 25. Did you guys get some 4-year terms or 5-year terms or something?
Diplomatic immunity, I believe.
I'm thinking those two are probably 23.
I would think so.
So
We'll look into that
we
again.
may want to look into that. So that's just a small item right there. The second thing is we have a vacant seat. We've had it for a while. I would challenge, I'm not going to be ambitious and say we all should find 2 people to apply, but if y'all can find 1 person, search around, I think it would be helpful. And I will do what I can too. I've tried to convince my friends it's a lot of fun, and I'm not getting anywhere. It's not working so far. And then, now I'm going to really nitpick, and I'll keep it short here. Do we still have a charter commission?
We do.
We do. Excellent. It's first of all, it's very helpful to read through the bylaws every once in a while. I hadn't read through the bylaws in a few years. So it's good to read through the bylaws. And we have things in the bylaws that do not match up at all at this point. The 2 items, one item would be the Pledge of Allegiance, which is not in the commission, not in our bylaws. And so if we're going to do that, maybe that's just a super small addition. And then the other small addition that would be, it talks about our bylaws address the different ways that people can communicate with the group, and electronic communication should be added. And that's all I got.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Very good. Anybody else? All right, well, I'll just real quickly, I'll finish up here and I'll say welcome aboard, Tiffany. Great to have you. This is good stuff that happens here, and after every meeting, you're gonna be so grateful that you were put on here and all of our riveting content, for sure. So thank you to that. And I also just like to say, with respect to the code last night, I just feel like that whole thing just worked out the way how city government is supposed to work. We put in the time and effort. We put forth an ordinance. City staff city council scrutinized it, sent it back to us. We re-looked at it, sent it back to them, and eventually the common ground was found. So I just want to thank everybody for all the time and effort, not only on our side, city staff side, but as city council as well, for eventually putting through what I think is a really solid ordinance. We did a lot of work for one little part there, but I think it paid off. So that's all I have. So with that, I will be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Same sign. Thank you, guys.